Hey, what's going on, NBC Church family and social media world? Always good to gather together with you on these Monday weekly videos. I'm joined today by my esteemed colleague, Pastor Bob Erbig, and my highly esteemed colleague, Rachel Rickershauser. Always good to be with you guys. How you doing this afternoon?
There you go.
Pretty good.
We're doing pretty good, man. We're hanging in there. It's a Monday.
Did the sun come out by you guys? I see the sun coming through the clouds, and it was quite the stormy thunderstorm weather for me last night. How about you?
I also had thunderstorms, and I do see the sun shining today. So it's morning in Millington.
Yeah, definitely starting to feel like fall too. So I'm looking forward to that.
Crisp. It's a crisp day.
Did you guys put on your central heating system in your homes yet, or are you still kind of holding out?
We did over the weekend. James actually had to get a little dirty and make sure the pilot like stayed on and everything and lit it. And yeah, he had to fix that actually for us.
Uh-oh.
Nice.
But
Nice.
he fixed it. So yeah, all good.
What a guy. What a guy.
Yeah, we've been turning on our heater overnight too. So that's been good. Keeping us warm.
Well, I guess we are officially in the swing of things for the fall. This is going to be the last video for September, I guess. So we're actually creeping up on October here.
October 2022. Who would have thought we'd make it here?
Here we are. And I don't know if you guys are a fan of daylight savings time or not, but
not in the fall. It's going to be like 3:00, and now you're going to be dark. So.
Yeah. That's not till November. Although I heard some debate in the halls of the New Jersey legislature about maybe not having that forever. But it looks like we're still having that this year. But
I hear it's been a point of discussion. So
yeah,
we'll see. I don't. I have to go back and look at the history of it as to why we do it. I know Arizona doesn't do it. The only state. Everybody else changes the time, I guess.
Well, Google tells me that's not till November 6th. So I guess we still got some time there with some daylight after 5 o'clock.
But it's getting shorter though, man. It's pretty dark at 8 o'clock now.
It is. Well, happy end of summer, beginning of fall to you guys. And Pastor Bob, we're continuing a sermon series going through the Old Testament books of 1st and 2nd Samuel, the life of King David, and you've had a couple messages in a row here. Can you tell us a little bit about your assigned passage this past Sunday?
You're just throwing me back into it. I'm just, trying to keep up with you.
Well,
yeah. Well, I mean, you covered 16 chapters before I came back, so I guess I had to cover a couple. Yeah. So we looked the previous week at David and Goliath, which everybody knows. And then this week we looked at 18, 19, and 20 of 1 Samuel, which some people know, some people don't. There's actually some kind of more obscure stories in there that people probably had to be reminded of. And we tried to cover it all because it is part of a whole arc. It's, immediately following Goliath, the Goliath story, and then leading into transitioning into David being on the run from Saul. And I think what I said at the end is how did you get from David and Goliath to here in just 3 chapters? And there was a lot that happened.
So you're saying not everybody was happy about David killing Goliath? I mean, other than Goliath, we know Goliath wasn't happy, but you're saying not everybody was hugely thrilled about this?
Well, it's complicated, right? So a lot of these Old Testament narratives definitely have complicated elements to them. So I think there was probably some initial happiness, but then once you do something like that and you get notoriety, anytime people get notoriety, there's always somebody else who's like, I don't know if they should get that, or who is the one who gets the glory for the battle, which is of course what the issue was at the beginning, in the middle of chapter 18. Now maybe to set it up, there's a number of characters that get introduced. The 3 main ones are King Saul, David, and then Jonathan, Saul's son, kind of comes into focus in these couple chapters, along with a few other people, but they're the main drivers, and it turns into this really big family drama triangle where people are jockeying for power. There's political ambition, there's jealousy. It's a mess, man. I kind of joked, King Saul seems like everywhere he goes, he's got a spear in his hand. He's just ready to throw it at people. So you better watch out if you're near Kings. It kind of reminded me of I haven't been to this place, but if you go down Route 22, they have that Stumpy's Hatchet House. It's like if somebody's down there just carrying around a hatchet all the time, getting ready to throw at your head. So it was man, talk about danger, talk about safety. It was a safety hazard, chapter 18 to 20.
Well,
So-
as Shakespeare said, beware, my lord, of jealousy. It is the green-eyed monster, right? So Saul gets consumed
Yeah.
with the monster of
He
jealousy
does.
there.
Well, maybe the way we set it up was I kind of looked ahead at 2 Samuel, and there's this eulogy that David gives for Jonathan in the beginning of 2 Samuel, after Jonathan dies in battle next to Saul. And we kind of talked about what would people say about you when you die? Like, what would be the things you'd want people to say about you? And if you want to have a eulogy of influence like Jonathan got from David, you have to be somebody who develops, deep influential relationships, and you have to shun any kind of sabotaging activity you would bring into relationships. And so you sort of have a compare contrast between Saul and Jonathan throughout the story, and David's, as how they're reacting to David as the king. And in the midst of the arc, we talked about 3 main points: that if you want to be a person of deep influence, you need to be somebody who crushes jealousy, somebody who trusts God's protection, and then you have to be somebody who submits to God's authority. And when you're doing those things, it's likely that the Lord is going to be with you and give you influence in people's lives. And each one of those lines up with the 3 chapters that we looked at on Sunday.
That's great.
So-
Well, let me bring Rachel in here a little bit. Rachel, did you get a chance to take a look at the passage this past weekend? And what were your thoughts on our sermon for this previous Sunday?
Yeah, sure. I think Bob, it's a lot to cover. It's so many chapters that are full in that short time. But yeah, I thought it was really interesting. I think it just made me think about my own life and how I am really thankful that I have close friends in my life, like Jonathan's in my life. And I think it changes over seasons, sometimes like you feel you're closer to some people when you're younger, and then as you get older. So I think friendships can like change and things. So just want to encourage people too that like it's okay if that happens and like you feel closer to someone over time than another. But I'm just really thankful for those people in my life. And and let's see, it also made me just think about the different types of jealousy. Like I thought that was a good reminder, because it's like I can kind of just say like, oh, I'm not a jealous type. But when you brought up like the different types, I was like, okay, yeah, I can relate to that. So
that may be something worthy of reflection, because we think jealous, we have a lot of these things we have a picture of, but there's different types that affect us. Like, so one of the things we talked about is maybe you're walking through a hardship, and you might not think that's not jealousy, but you start to look at other people's lives and you think they're not as hard as mine, and so you're kind of jealous of their. And we live in a day and age where everybody's putting out everything on the internet, and people curate and create these picture perfect families and lives, and you start to think, why can't I have that? When in reality, a lot of people are just kind of doing the brush strokes over top of the challenges they probably have as well.
So what's underneath of the jealousy? Is it like insecurity, or what's going on under the surface there? Why does that come up?
Well, I mean, in the story, the thing that I brought up was the idea that fear is what's driving our jealousy, or certainly what was driving Saul's to some extent. So what's weird is that they come out after the David and Goliath story, and all these women of the cities are coming out, they're singing this song, and they mention both Saul and David, and Saul gets jealous because he's like, why is David getting mentioned in the same breath as me, when in fact that really wasn't the intention, but that's how Saul took it. So we should do a whole series on Saul and his insecurities and his complexities. But this really just kind of brought that out, these couple chapters, and it's going to get accentuated as we go along. But I think at least, playing on the fear idea, I think there is a fear that you might lose influence if somebody younger comes along. You might lose relevance, and people won't think you're important. They won't come to you. You might think you're going to lose a relationship if somebody else gets close to the friend that you have. So there's all different kinds of things that come up. And I do think in reality, all of us have some kind of insecure lining in our hearts. It's just a matter of what triggers that and shows us that, oh, that's what really touches me. That's the thing that I hold most dear and most precious, and I'm afraid of losing it to some extent. So there might be some other things that drive it, but I think those are a lot of what we wrestle. I know it's a lot of what I wrestle with at times.
So Saul is kind of boiling with this under the surface all the time, but then a couple times he actually explodes, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, he explodes, and like we said, he's got a spear in his hand for every occasion. You know, watch out, this guy's gonna be tossing stuff at your head, it's like he's playing darts. Which, by the way, I didn't say this in the sermon, but there was a gentleman here at the church when I first came, and I was doing youth ministry, who dared me to go out there, and he was going to shoot an apple off of my head with a crossbow, which I declined.
Oh,
This was a joke. This was a joke, although he said it.
Well, I did hear a lot of chuckles in this sermon, Bob, so you got a lot of people laughing.
Yeah, okay, all right, good. Well, maybe people can relate to people throwing spears at them. I guess we should be checking in with the Bernards Township Police Department. But yeah, he explodes, and what we said is that jealousy kind of takes us down this path, and it eventually affects our actions. So you saw how Saul was not just throwing spears, but then he was manipulating situations where David would hopefully die, and then he was sending assassins to his house, and then he was chasing him down, and God had to supernaturally intervene to keep him from doing that. And then he was throwing spears at Jonathan, and I mean, this guy he's, so again, talk about sabotaging relationships. Saul is the example of what not to do if you want to have influence, to kind of do the opposite of him.
Right.
But, the other thing too with that is that I think whenever we get to a place where we have importance, where we have influence, where we have power, it's then that we get really tempted, and we have to be on extra guard. And I think we've seen probably a lot of examples of that just in modern day. People think that they believe they're oppressed, or they're above things, or that couldn't happen to me. And maybe that's part of what was going on with Saul. I don't know.
So I don't want to fast forward too much here, but you had kind of these three characters, and each one of them taught us something different, right? So
yeah,
what can we learn about from each of these three characters? What were the lessons? What were the takeaways as we think about Saul, as we think about Jonathan, as we think about David? How were each of them instructive toward us?
Well, we kind of ended by talking about Jonathan. Probably came off in the best light, as far as how he's portrayed, because his story kind of bookends 18 to 20, where at the beginning he's the guy who's heir to the throne, and yet he's laying down his claim to the throne essentially through an action of giving his robe to David, pledging his loyalty to David, making a covenant with him. And then at the end, he's kind of reaffirming that covenant. And later on, I actually misspoke. I thought that they didn't see each other again. But if you go forward a couple chapters, Jonathan does come and meet David, but in a way that he's trying to protect David from Saul coming to get him. So Jonathan continues to have David's back, so to speak, as the story through 1 Samuel goes along. So I lined up each of their influences with the 3 points that we looked at. So Saul, the point that Saul teaches us is that we have to crush jealousy, like essentially kill jealousy, or it will kill you. And if you've ever experienced that and seen its destructive effects, like we looked at the 2 wisdoms from James chapter 3, you know that to be true. Secondly, David, I think, is the one who teaches us how to trust God's protection, because he's the one who's getting chased. Right. If you read Psalm 59, he writes that when these assassins are sitting outside his house. So I imagine at some point, David's just getting tired of being on the run. Although David is kind of complicated. I think there's a few verses in there, especially in chapter 18:26, where it sort of alludes to the fact that David is kind of liking the fame that he's getting. And you'll see that later on. Both Saul and David followed this kind of same arc, where they start out strong, they get to a place, and then there's just this hard fall. Where David ends at the end of 2 Samuel is not maybe quite as far as Saul goes, but it's, he's fallen far from the heights of David and Goliath, of where he was. So and then Jonathan, I think, ultimately teaches us how to submit to God's authority, because he's laying aside his own ambition for the sake of surrendering himself to God's anointed king. And that's where we kind of ended the message by comparing that to what Jesus calls us to do. Jesus calls us to take off our symbolic robes and lay them at his feet, give our lives to him, put aside our ambition for the sake of allegiance to him. And then when we do that, when we're following his will, that's when we have the most influence, because we're walking out our calling to be his disciples and his followers. So that's kind of a quick summary of the things we talked about.
Great.
We can get a little bit more into that if you want, but that's kind of
I
where
just
we
have to say
were.
one more thing. I just love that on the women's retreat, a lot of us got to see the David show at Sight and Sound,
Mhm.
and maybe other people just went on their own. But I now, like, whenever I hear one of the sermons, I just picture like how they
Right.
treat it, and I thought it was a really good show. And of course, they take some liberties, but it's been really kind of helpful. Give me like a visual.
Well, what I liked a lot, I thought about because I saw the show too. What I liked a lot was that the scene where Saul is chasing David, and the way they depicted the Spirit of the Lord coming down
Yes.
and
Yeah, I
making the
thought about
people prophesy and fall over, and how that was a way of
Mhm.
protecting David when he goes to Samuel. That was really it. I thought they did a great job with visually.
Yeah.
There was like this cloud that comes down, because prophesy, like we talked about, is not like you think about somebody's giving a prophecy, a forthtelling. It's showing that there's a supernatural spirit controlling the people, and in this case, to protect David from the malintent of Saul and his servants.
Yeah, that was really interesting because I didn't understand that previously. So
Yeah, I remember watching the show and thinking, I got to go back and read exactly how that's depicted. So anyway, that's a side note.
So buy your tickets for Lancaster Sight and
Hey,
Sound.
you should. It's a
South
great show.
Africa,
They did a
It'd
great
be a
job.
great fall to check that out in light of what we're studying and
Yeah.
what the Lord's teaching us. So
Although I
thanks,
will say
Pastor
though,
Bob.
they made David look pretty good at the end of the show, so they didn't quite show the depths to where he fell at the
Yeah.
end. So you have to,
Okay.
Take that
Little caveat from Pastor Bob.
caveat.
All right.
Caveat.
So,
There you go.
well, we look forward to picking it up here next Sunday, as we're going to look at a little bit of a tighter passage in 1 Samuel 25 with an
Oh, is this the
interaction.
cave and the he cuts off the robe?
It's not. It's a little different than that. So there's an interaction between Abigail and a man named Nabal and David.
Right,
So
right.
Abigail.
we're gonna
Right.
narrow
We
in
can
there as
Focus
David
in on the
actually
female. There's some
gets.
female characters in there
Yeah,
too. Good.
there you
Yeah.
go.
This Sunday we will see David gets saved by a woman, and so it's a
100%.
very interesting passage.
Well,
So we'll look forward
again,
to
as you
continuing that.
know, he did get saved by one woman in this passage, but
Like,
I'm not sure that she came off the greatest, Michael, his wife, but she was there.
Complicated, round character.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll pick it up there next time. What else is going on in the life of NBC? Rachel, what's going on in kids ministry? Tell
Yeah,
us a little
sure.
bit about what you're up to.
Yeah, sure. So this weekend we had a really fun time at the dinner and a movie event. And it was like a back to school social. So the teachers and parents were invited. I thought it was a lot of fun. Walter, of course, did a great job setting up the movie surround sound for us. And yeah, it just seemed like a really good time. I wanted to share one thing on my screen really quick that I shared with everyone at the event. So I just recently wrote up this NBC Kids philosophy of discipleship. So basically, I just wanted all in one place, a place to share what our vision is for NBC Kids. You'll see our mission and vision statements are there. And then also just like how we strive to teach the kids about the Bible and God throughout the time that we have them. So as you can see, I'll just scroll down. I'm not going to read it, but just want to show you. So we start with nursery and we just describe some highlights here. And I use the graphics from, the Cultivating the Christian Life graphics. So like, at this stage, we water the little seeds and we want children to know they are safe and loved. So, just highlight a few of those things and how we do that in the nursery. And then you'll see the preschoolers, they become the little seedlings. And then I describe our curriculum and what we do there. So elementary is that little, getting a little bigger. We call that a sapling. And this is where we really lay the foundation of biblical understanding and they grow in their relationships with each other and the teachers too. It's so important to have other adults in your life besides your parents to speak into your faith. So passionate about that. And I list our curriculum there. And then our 56ers, as you all know, we have a special 2 years for these for this age group. We try to make it really different and special for them as they are just getting older and more mature in their faith. So we have, special classes and opportunities to start serving and things like that. So yeah, and then of course, list a few more resources and events that we do. So again, that's just going to be a resource, especially for our parents and teachers, but it's also great if, people know of a family with kids who are thinking about coming to NBC. You can even share that. And I'm going to I'm going to ask Mark to put it on the website for us. So that'll be available.
So people can go review it later on if they'd like.
Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome, Rachel. Thank you. Any other special events coming up you wanted to mention or highlight?
Yeah, well, of course, October means that at Millington, we have our annual trunk or treat event. So if you go to the events page right here on the website, you can scroll down and it'll pop up. So this year, if anyone was at our Easter event, so our hair raising egg party this past year, we added a VIP access for children with special needs. And I'm really excited that we're going to do that again. So this is just an opportunity for parents with kids with special needs to come at a quieter time of the event, because I know that it can be intimidating to go to a very full event for a child with special needs. I have a sister with special needs, so I just grew up with that too. We kind of were like a unique family in attending things like this. So anyway, I think this was really great at the Easter party, so we just wanted to continue that again. So what it is that we just have so many registrations for this event, so just please come to the website and see where you want to serve. So we have register for attendance, reserving your trunk space, so that's if you want to decorate your trunk. And then you can also serve in another way. If you're not the creative type for decorating your trunk, you can help us in other ways like greeting and parking, security, crafts, and refreshments, stuff like that.
Great.
So lots of opportunities here. It's an event that, we've done several years now, but I think I always hear that people really enjoy it. So hopefully this year too.
It's a great event. You got to come out for it. It's the place to be.
I didn't even say the day it was, but it's on there. So Saturday,
October 22nd,
October
right?
22nd.
Yeah.
Excellent. Very good. Thank you, Rachel. Bob, is there anything else that we wanted to highlight before we wrap it up today?
Well, I personally wanted to highlight, because Scott mentioned this yesterday, the Alpha initiative that we're going to be doing. If you go to the website, you can see here. If you don't know what Alpha is, this is it's basically a small group, but maybe not. A small group might not be the best way to describe it. It's you get together with other people. And if you're a Christian, hopefully you have some friends who are outside the faith who are just interested in talking about spiritual things. You can invite them to a group. We'll typically do dinner. There's a video that talks about some of the different tenets of the Christian faith. And then afterwards, you talk about that and think, what did you think? So if you're a Christian, it could be a good reminder of the basic core tenets of what we believe. But hopefully it's where you can invite people that are not part of the faith to come in and learn more about Jesus. We are going to be launching the initiative post the Contend conference in February. I'm hoping to get a group or two there. If you're interested in being part of that, interested in maybe even helping to lead that, you have some friends you'd like to come out, you want to learn more about it, we're doing a vision meeting November 6th, right after the second service. You can register here. We'll feed you lunch. We'll talk about the vision for this initiative. We'll watch a video or two so you get a better feel of Alpha, although you can watch this video right here now if you want. And we'd love to have you join us for that. We're praying for that initiative and praying that we see some folks come to Jesus as a result.
Very cool. Well, guys, check out our website for all of the details of everything that's happening at NBC. There's a lot more that we didn't mention, but the Lord is at work in a special way. And thank you guys for taking some time to view this video today. We look forward to seeing you later this week or this weekend. Don't miss next Sunday. It's going to be a great time together. And we'll see you guys then. Thanks, Rachel. Thanks, Bob.
All right. God bless.
Of course.